street was silent, wrapped in the stillness of a fading evening. The orange glow of the setting sun stretched long shadows across the pavement, and the occasional whisper of wind brushed past the old fences that lined the road. Rahim was walking home after another long day, his mind buried in the weight of deadlines, bills, and tomorrow's uncertainties. Nothing about this quiet evening suggested his life was about to change. But just as he turned a corner, something on the ground caught his eye. At first glance, it looked like a crumpled piece of fabric tossed aside and forgotten. Yet as Rahim stepped closer, the shape shifted. His heart skipped a beat, and for a brief moment he couldn't tell if he was seeing reality or a trick of light. Then it moved again, unmistakably alive. Rahim's breath caught as he realized he wasn't looking at cloth at all, but at something far more fragile, something that would pull him into a mystery he never expected. What seemed like a simple rescue was about to unravel a secret buried in silence, one that would alter his path forever. Before we begin this story, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that will leave you speechless. And I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Rahim's pace slowed as curiosity tugged at him. The shape on the pavement was trembling, shivering under the last touch of daylight. He crouched, peering closer, and the truth hit him harder than he expected. It was a tiny puppy, no bigger than his hand, its fur black and damp as though it had been caught in rain, though the skies above were clear. The little creature's ribs rose and fell with shallow breaths, every movement heavy with exhaustion. For a moment, Rahim froze. Who could have abandoned something so defenseless here? He glanced around the street, but it was empty. No voices, no footsteps, just the fading hum of evening air. Slowly, carefully, he extended his hand. The puppy lifted its head, eyes wide and glistening with fear, yet beneath that fear flickered a spark of innocence, a plea for help without words. The look pierced straight into Rahim's chest. Without thinking, he scooped the puppy into his arms, its tiny body trembling against him, fragile as glass. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped the puppy inside, shielding it from the chill. A wave of protectiveness washed over him. He didn't know where it had come from, but one thing was certain. He couldn't leave it here. Back at his apartment, Rahim laid the puppy gently onto a folded towel. The room was small, modest and quiet, but tonight it held something new. The puppy, whom Rahim decided to call Shadow, curled its tiny body on the towel, its wide eyes following every move Rahim made. He filled a small bowl with water and set scraps of bread near the pup. At first, Shadow hesitated, sniffing cautiously, but hunger soon won. Each bite seemed to bring a flicker of strength back, a little spark returning to its fragile form. Rahim sat quietly, watching with an unfamiliar warmth building inside his chest. He hadn't expected this. He thought he was simply helping a lost creature survive a night. Yet there was something about the way Shadow looked at him, a silent trust forming in the space between them. As night deepened, Rahim fashioned a makeshift bed near his own, arranging blankets to keep Shadow warm. When he finally lay down, he noticed the puppy inch closer, curling against him. A tiny sigh of relief left its body and Rahim's heart softened. Two lonely souls had found each other in the most unlikely way. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, filling the room with a warm, golden glow. Rahim stirred awake, stretching, before glancing toward the blanket where Shadow had slept. His heart skipped. Shadow wasn't there. Panic fled for an instant until his eyes found the little pup sitting near the door, ears perked, body tense. Its gaze wasn't fixed on Rahim, but on something beyond the door. Shadow let out a sharp bark, startling in its intensity for such a tiny creature. It wasn't random noise. It sounded like a warning. Rahim frowned, his unease growing. He opened the door slightly to fetch his newspaper, but Shadow darted forward, nose pressed to the ground, sniffing rapidly. The pup circled, stopped abruptly, and barked again, this time with insistence. Rahim bent to pick him up, but Shadow wriggled, squirming to get free, desperate to follow something invisible. Rahim sighed, shaking his head. Perhaps it was just instinct, perhaps nothing at all. Yet as the day wore on, the strangeness continued. Shadow paced the room, scratching at the door, whining as if pleading with him to listen. By afternoon, Rahim could no longer dismiss it. The little dog's insistence was too deliberate, too urgent. With a heavy sigh, he slipped on his shoes and opened the door. "All right, Shadow," he muttered. "Let's see what you're trying to show me." The puppy bolted out, nose pressed to the ground, leading with determination far too strong for its size. Rahim followed, his pulse quickening with each step. They wound through streets, past familiar alleys, through corners Rahim rarely noticed. The city seemed to blur as Shadow pressed on, guided by some invisible thread. Minutes stretched and Rahim's unease deepened. Where could this little creature possibly be taking him? After nearly 20 minutes, they stopped before an old, forgotten building at the edge of a narrow alley. The place looked abandoned, its wooden door weathered, its windows dark and silent. Shadow's barks grew frantic, sharp echoes slicing through the quiet air. Rahim hesitated, a chill running down his spine. Why here? Shadow clawed at the door, whining, eyes desperate. Rahim's hand trembled as he reached for the rusted handle. With a creak, the door groaned open, releasing a breath of damp, stale air. Sunlight filtered in, piercing the gloom. Rahim's breath hitched. Huddled in the corner beneath tattered blankets was another puppy. Smaller, weaker, its body trembling with exhaustion. Its eyes half closed, breath shallow. Rahim's chest tightened. Shadow rushed forward, licking the fragile creature's face, tail wagging furiously in recognition. It was then Rahim understood. The puppy he had saved wasn't lost. Shadow had been searching for someone willing to follow, someone willing to rescue what he couldn't protect alone. Rahim's throat tightened as he scooped the second pup into his arms. "Luna," he whispered softly, naming her in that moment. "You're safe now." The journey back felt heavy with emotion. At home, Rahim laid Luna on the blankets, offering food and water. For a terrifying moment, she barely moved. Then slowly, she nibbled, strength returning grain by grain. Relief washed over Rahim, and a tear slipped down his cheek. He hadn't saved just one life. He had unknowingly saved two. Shadow nestled beside Luna, keeping her warm, never leaving her side. For the first time, Rahim saw not just two rescued animals, but a bond unbroken, siblings reunited by fate. As he cleaned the old shed later, something caught his eye, an old scrap of paper half buried under debris. He picked it up, the words faint but legible. "Please help my puppies. I can't keep them safe." His blood ran cold. These little lives weren't abandoned by chance. Someone had trusted the world to save them, and fate had placed that burden in his hands. That night, as both puppies curled against him, their tiny breaths steady and warm, Rahim stared at the ceiling in silence. His apartment, once empty and quiet, now pulsed with life. He realized that he hadn't stumbled into coincidence. He had been chosen by fate to save them, and in return, they had saved him from loneliness he hadn't even acknowledged. Smiling softly, he whispered, "You're safe now. I promise." In that tender silence, he knew his life had changed forever. Sometimes the smallest creatures carry the greatest miracles.